I'ma put you up on the schedule. 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not 2 and 7. Let's go. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DiPrima go way back. Tag Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DiPrima. Go sis. First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. The show is called First Things First, and my very first thing every single day, giving thanks, giving praises, and asking for blessings from God, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders. And let's launch this rocket ship. All right, we got a lot going on today, and I'm quite happy about that. I'm very glad you're here. So this is how we do things on a Thursday. Hour one, we look local, what's going on the left coast, of course, the national implications. Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive of sorts. Today's deep dive will be on a project called Afripedia. It is a comprehensive Black online project meant to give you an alternative to Meta and YouTube and all the others. So we'll go do a deep dive on that. Hour two, we'll be talking with Dr. Gerald Horn as we explore what's happening nationally and internationally with one of the top scholars, Black scholars actually in the nation right now, Dr. Gerald Horn. And right now, it is my pleasure, my honor, and of course, it's always fun to welcome in one of our top attorneys. He's in private practice at Douglas Hicks Law in Los Angeles. He was named Trial Lawyer of the Year for 2006 by the Consumer Attorneys Association of Los Angeles. It's one of many accolades. He is a former managing attorney at the law offices of Johnnie Cochran Jr., where he worked for more than 11 years. And of course, you probably know him best for his work as the coordinator of OJ Simpson's criminal defense team. Attorney Carl Douglas, good morning.
Dominique, it is always, my sister, a pleasure being with you in the morning. Even early this morning.
Even early. I know you're on the early shift today. But we think of civil rights and we think of the many things that you yourself have done in that space. But you've taken on, and I guess this has a civil rights twinge to it. But I mean, what we're dealing with this morning is the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, and it's not the kind of thing that we would necessarily associate you with. But man, if I was suffering from that fire, I would be glad to have you as my lawyer.
Well, you'll thank this, and it's funny that you say that. Because as an Angelino, I often get calls when family or friends see news reports in California about wildfires. And I always tell them, oh, don't worry, that's not involving any of us. Well, June the 8th of 2025 was different. For the first time in my memory, the fires, the wildfires impacted me, my life, people I know and love. My namesake, Carl Douglas, my grandfather, bought a home in Altadena in the 60s.
Wow.
That home has burned to the ground. My maternal grandfather, George Harvey, bought a home on El Molino where I lived in when I came back from law school. That house has burned to the ground. My law partner is a Kappa, and he tells me 20 Kappas have lost their homes, at least in the Altadena neighborhood. So it's in that history that our firm is representing the family of Rodney Kent Nickerson, who was 82 years old. That Nickerson name is important because Nickerson Gardens was created by his grandfather, William Nickerson. He is indeed, Dom, we can talk more, a member of Black royalty who died in that fire, one of 17 deaths. And we are suing the Southern California Edison because we claim they put profits over safety, resulting in over 9,000 structures being burned to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've been tracking, but even no matter how many statistics or how many articles you read, it just doesn't capture the human impact. And you're right. We think of wildfires. We think of Malibu, areas that may or may not have a lot of Black people in them or relatives of ours. Not that we don't feel for folks there, but it doesn't have the direct impact. Altadena is a different story. You start, well, let's go where you went, because most everyone has heard about the death of William Nickerson, right, by now. The death of, of William Nickerson. Rodney Nickerson, right, the grandson of William Nickerson,
correct,
who was 82 at the time.
Correct.
But explain, who this man was. I mean, you made reference to Nickerson Gardens and to being Black royalty, but this man, Rodney Nickerson, lived in Altadena and had lived there for 45 years.
Even longer, Dom. He bought a house there in 1968.
Wow.
For $5 down and proof that he had a job. He worked for 45 years as an engineer at Lockheed Martin. He would drive 130 miles every day back and forth to his work. I call him Black royalty because not only was his grandfather one of the founders of Golden State Mutual Insurance on Western and Adams, his father was a tax attorney in the 50s,
Wow.
who first took up residence in Altadena. As you know, Altadena was a burgeoning area of Black wealth, certainly in the 80s and 90s. It was up to 42% Black at its height in the mid-80s. That has now gone down to 18% Black. So what we're trying to also emphasize in this lawsuit is the importance of Black families holding on to those homes and retaining that family wealth through generations.
So obviously they have deep roots there. And for those who weren't tracking, Mr. Nickerson he did get an evacuation warning. Some folks in Altadena did not. Apparently he did, and decided
no. They didn't get a warning until 3:15 that morning.
Okay, so he did get a late warning, like many of the Altadena residents.
Correct, but he was already, the last contact that the family had with him was when he went to bed 11 o'clock that night. He told his grandson, "Don't worry, son, I'll be here when you come back in the morning." And those were the last words anyone remembers having with him personally.
So he didn't get official warnings. The family was saying, "Hey, we're getting out." He didn't go.
Correct.
He went to sleep that night, and then he was found dead in his
bed.
Yeah.
Bones were found in the bed.
That's a terrible, terrible tragedy for any family in such a horrible way, to lose your granddad or your loved one. So you're representing his daughters, right? Kimiko.
Correct. His daughter and her son, his grandson, who lived at the house. Mr. Nickerson had another son as well who lives in Texas, who's being represented by other lawyers.
Okay, and you, we'll get deeper into this Edison situation, because I know there are several lawsuits against them, and there's been some discussion in the paper, and they've put up their own theories of why they're not responsible, which is not surprising. But tell me what his daughter, Kimiko, and grandson, Chase Newton, they're never going to get their loved one back, what they are hoping people would know and that would come out of this.
Sure. And let me be clear, because she may be listening. She pronounces her name Kimiko.
Okay.
But what they really want as much as anything else is that the memory of their father not be forgotten, and that Southern California Edison be held accountable so that 17 more families do not have to go through the tragedy that they have had to go through. They had a memorial service just last weekend for Mr. Nickerson, attended by hundreds at the Weller Missionary Baptist Church in Los Angeles, where Mr. Nickerson was one of the head deacons. That just reflects what a fiber he was, not only to Altadena, but to the entire Los Angeles community. He sorely will be missed.
And so we can help Kimiko and Chase a little bit this morning by saying Rodney Nickerson's name about 1 million times. That desire, that the family legacy and her father, grandfather, not be forgotten. I want to get into why you think Edison is responsible, and where we are with that, the understanding of that, the investigation of that. Also want to touch on something you mentioned, which I've, seen a firestorm of commentary on online about whether or not it's going to be possible at all for that community to come back, for specifically the Black families to rebuild and recreate a community that meant so very much to them, not just because of the houses, but because of the fellowship and the bonds and the history that are in that Altadena community. I'm Dominique DiPrima. My guest is Attorney Carl Douglas, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way Black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
Many of the 39 BLM grassroots chapters across the nation are participating in this honoring of the memory of Breonna Taylor on the anniversary of her death. This BLMLA event is taking place on Sunday, March 16th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Norman Houston Park, 4800 South La Brea in Los Angeles, the park at the summit. For special parking options and more information, visit blmla.org or go to BLM Los Angeles on Instagram. Say her name, Breonna Taylor, and join us in loving on Black women. Happy Women's History Month from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
We're getting back to Carl Douglas, the attorney, the famed attorney who's now representing the family of Rodney Nickerson, who perished in the Eaton Canyon Altadena fire. And let's talk about Southern California Edison. I know there are a number of lawsuits. There has been discussion about, by them, saying, well, they found an old campfire or an old, like a fire created by a human person wandering in the woods, some distance from there. But residents, from what I've read, saw sparks, and there was some discussion about whether or not the lines were shut off, or if they were fully shut off, or if they should have been. So unconfuse us on that, if you would, Attorney Douglas, as you see it.
Dominic, I'm always in awe of how well-versed and read you are on current issues of the day, because you have encapsulated the struggle that will last for the next several years from both sides. Fortunately, in 2025, technology plays a critical role in times like these. Everyone has a cell phone camera. Surveillance cameras are posted everywhere. And we have in our lawsuit, in fact, pictures that were taken that show the very sparks that you described near the area of the towers in Eaton Canyon. One of the lawyers on our office, a new partner named Terrence Jones, Terrence was an assistant U.S. attorney in Los Angeles, and one of his jobs was to be on wildfire investigation teams.
Wow.
Whenever there would be a wildfire by federal lands, he would get on a helicopter, fly to an area, and he tells us you can look at blades of grass and how they are bent in the wilderness to help determine the source of a particular fire. We're confident that the evidence is overwhelming that there was a spark that created a small fire near the base of a couple of towers. Whether that was because they had turned off the power at other towers and there was a backlash of some kind, or whether there was an original spark there, is going to be the source of tremendous litigation. Indeed, there are members of the plaintiff team headed out to the towers next week to conduct drone-related investigations and inspections. So the work will begin soon, trying to get to the bottom of exactly what caused these fires. The important thing to remember, though, and my family has reminded me, while these winds in January were extensive, they were not unexpected. People that live in the canyon areas around Eaton Canyon have experienced gusts of winds of 20, 30, 50 miles an hour or more almost regularly, which we argue would put the company on notice to be mindful of the potential dangers that continuing to have electricity through those towers can create for the surrounding neighborhoods.
Yeah, I was speaking with Alan Shea, who, has hit the Red Hen restaurant in Altadena that was burned to the ground. And he was complaining about the fact that the electrical wiring in that area should have been moved underground, and saying that, growing up, they had seen they had seen those sparks coming out of those towers, and that the wiring was regularly an issue for residents, and just the winds, as you say, were sort of well known, and I know that's why some folks didn't evacuate.
Yes, that's exactly right. And this is where, Dominic, the question of institutional racism comes in, because Edison has spent millions and millions of dollars in other communities moving those wires underground for exactly those reasons. And we believe they have been put on notice from past occasions when other residents have contacted them, having seen sparks in other situations like this. So they should have known about the potential risks and taken further action.
And I mean, is that also lawmakers? I mean, is that strictly Edison, or is that also something that Catherine Barger, the LA County Board of Supervisors, the representatives of Altadena, even though they don't have their own mayor and city council, they just have like an advisory board. Is that something those folks are also culpable for?
Not legally. There are immunities that protect government officials and government agencies. For example, if there's a fire at my house and the fire department comes too late or runs out of water, you can't sue the city because they came too late or ran out of water. Interestingly, though, surrounding cities like Pasadena, Sierra Madre are joining and filing their own lawsuits against Southern California Edison because they, too, recognize their responsibility for the surrounding areas where these towers are laid. Dom, in the 1980s, while a member of Johnnie Cochran's office, we represented many families, including a death in the Baldwin Hills fire. I remember being on the roof of one of my buddies on Don Felipe, watering his roof out of fear that his house was going to be burned. That was against Pepperdine University, and it proved that the owner of the land continue to have a responsibility to make sure that their areas are safe, particularly from known, anticipated, and foreseeable risks.
So that's interesting. If you want to hold your electeds accountable, the ones that are actually making the decisions, that's up to the voters. Legally, it is the company that had responsibility, which in this case would be Southern California Edison. I remember something similar in the Bay Area with the Pacific Gas and Electric and the big fires up there, and they actually were held liable and then turned around and I believe declared bankruptcy. Can they dodge responsibility in that way? What happens if they do that? I mean, it's a lot of homes and a lot of families.
There will be years of litigation, and I'm sure some of the conversations that are happening in the top levels of Southern California are contemplating a variety of options. That may be one of them. This is an unprecedented fire in terms of just the scope of the devastation. I can't remember 9,400 structures having been burned down in Altadena. PG&E and Paradise and other fires that have occurred in Northern California have used other strategies other than bankruptcy, but yes, that is one potential option that a company as big as Southern California Edison could consider. So I think unlikely.
We just got a minute and a half here till news, traffic, and sports. I mean, you mentioned Baldwin Hills fire. It's a reminder to all of us that any of us could have been impacted in this way. What should we as consumers be advocating that these power companies do? Shut down completely, then we have power outages. Folks don't like that. But it seems like with a climate emergency, we are going to see more and more of these kinds of scenarios.
That's exactly right, Dom. Again, you're spot on. We have to give greater appreciation and attention to the impact that this climate crisis is having on our community. There are going to be more wind-swept fires in the future. There are going to be greater problems of drought, particularly of vegetation and those kinds of things, as the roller coaster of climate change is going to impact us. So now, more than ever, your listeners must give greater attention and resist those that would seek to deny the impact of science.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Attorney Carl Douglas is my guest. I want to talk about rebuilding. I want to talk a little bit more about the Nickerson family. I mean, just such a devastating loss. And I really, if they are listening, Kimiko and Chase and the entire family, my greatest, deepest condolences to you and your family. We've got news, traffic, and sports right here, and then we'll continue this conversation with attorney Carl Douglas on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Measles cases continue to rise after a West Texas outbreak with 258 confirmed cases across multiple states. Most cases are in unvaccinated children in Texas, and there have been 2 related deaths. 6 Americans imprisoned in Kuwait, mostly veterans and former military contractors, have been freed and returned to the U.S. More American prisoners are expected to be released soon under a new agreement. Stocks opened mixed after a softer inflation report eased economic concerns following a 2-day sell-off. Inflation rose 0.2% last month, below the expected 0.3%. And Amazon MGM is reportedly developing a Tiger Woods biopic with Higher Ground, the production company of former President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama, in talks to produce. The film will be based on the book The Tiger Slam, the inside story of the greatest golf ever played. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers sent LeBron back to L.A. for further treatment on his groin injury. The decision was made in the middle of the Lakers' 4-game road trip. The Lakers are in Milwaukee tonight and at Denver on Friday. LeBron is expected to miss at least the next 2 weeks. The Clippers found some new offense Wednesday night in Miami. Bogdan Bogdanović dropped 30 points in the Clippers' 119-104 win over the Heat. It was also a good night for Ivica Zubac, 26 points and 14 rebounds. The Clippers are in Atlanta Friday night. The Rams made it official. They released wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Kupp played his first 8 NFL seasons with the Rams. He was the Super Bowl MVP in 2021 when the Rams beat Cincinnati to win the championship. Tough decision to say goodbye to such a productive player, but the Rams need some salary cap space. Kupp's departure saves the Rams $15 million. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I feel so alone.
I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
How can I help my kid if I can't help myself?
I can't remember when I wasn't stressed.
I don't like it.
When you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, it's okay to get help. You are not alone. CalHope is here for you with free, safe, and confidential mental health resources for youth, young adults, families, and you. Find support now at calhope.org.
We've got a lot to talk about.
On January 7th, 2025, the Eaton Canyon Fire scorched Altadena, torching everything in its path. Homes, wealth, and legacy burned in one night. But will Altadena rise from the ashes? I'm James Farr. On the Conversation Live Altadena Rising, we're chronicling the recovery, the resilience, and justice for the nation. This is the show of record, unapologetically progressive. We're not blacking down. So join me, James Farr, on The Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific with the rebroadcast on Sunday at noon.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
What make you? Yeah.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to announce that, like George and Weezy,
We're moving on now.
earlier this year, we were named a semi-finalist for the American Climate Leadership Awards 2025. Wait for it. You ready? KBLA Talk 1580 was recently selected as one of 10 finalists being considered for this prestigious award. Hundreds of organizations, institutions, and even cities were nominated in the selection process. But KBLA Talk 1580 has made it to the finals. You're invited to watch live on Wednesday, April 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, as Eco America announces the winner and the runner-up, awarding over $200,000 in prize money. To watch live, just go to ecoamerica.org to register and attend the online ceremony. That's ecoamerica.org. Don't miss the presentation of the American Climate Leadership Awards 2025, Wednesday, April 16th, and wish us luck. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black. Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, we're talking with attorney Carl Douglas. He is representing the family of Rodney Nickerson. You started out the hour saying that Mr. Nickerson was actually black royalty here in Southern California. His grandfather, the founder of the Watts Nickerson Gardens housing complex, and his family now with deep roots in Altadena. You're representing, of course, Kimiko Nickerson, his daughter, and grandson Chase Newton, the daughter and grandson of Rodney Nickerson, who perished in that fire. They are suing Southern California Edison because they believe that they are liable. They are at fault here for the loss of life and for the loss of property. Is that a fair summary? If not, please fix the parts that I messed up.
My sister, I could not have said it better myself.
So, I mean, does that mean that every single one of these people, the 9,000 plus structures that burned down, may be owed money, may be due something from Southern California Edison?
Yes, it does. Those that do not have insurance or who are not adequately compensated for their losses have the right to seek compensation for the damages, injuries, and harms that they suffered. All 9,400 of them likely will not choose to sue. It's likely, however, clearly that the 17 families who suffered tragic loss of life are going to want to be compensated for those injuries because the insurance will likely not be sufficient to meet the levels of damages that they incurred.
And you say that his death was avoidable. Explain what you mean by that.
because it is not, and it was not unusual that there be high winds through the communities of Altadena. And the Edison Company had a variety of different options that they could have availed themselves to prevent this spark that led to the fire starting. One of the options in the planning and designing of those electrical lines, as you discussed, is the choice to put the wires underground. That, of course, is more expensive. So they basically made a conscious decision to put profit over safety, choosing alternatives to what everyone would agree is the safest alternative, and that would be running all of the electrical lines underground. The problem of sparks and fires is not something new to Edison. They own towers throughout Southern California in many mountainous regions, such as Eaton Canyon. And they do use their technology to reduce or lower or stop the transmission of electrical current during times and at positions where they think there is a risk. We believe the failure to have taken appropriate steps in a circumstance that was foreseeable led to this tragedy, and the law allows the family to seek compensation for those damages.
Yeah. You talked about people. I mean, I say yeah like that because I'm thinking, I hope they win. I hope they get compensation, but nothing is going to bring back their granddad.
To be clear, everyone who lost memories in this fire are not going to be fully compensated. Not only do we represent the family of Rodney Nickerson, but along with our co-counsel, John Harris of Harris and Hayden, we also represent 4 other families who lost homes, and we're certainly trying to still find other families who were impacted as well. So no one who has lost photo albums, collections of jazz greats, and other memories are going to be fully compensated, no matter what results from what are going to be probably 5 years of litigation.
Wow.
And that really leads to another problem, Dom, because many of the families there are long-established Black families. So whether they have the wherewithal and the patience and the resources to rebuild is truly a challenge, especially in the face of speculators who have come down on that community, offering hundreds of thousands of dollars to what is now vacant lands and 7 years of potential before they're able to rebuild.
Yeah, that's what worries me a lot, Attorney Carl Douglas, is, and some people were talking about this at the Pasadena church when we did our live broadcast there. We can't shame people for selling. You know, if you're in your 80s or 90s, you might not have 5 years to wait around for your place to get rebuilt, or perhaps you don't have the wherewithal. What if you don't have insurance because you own the property outright? A lot of us, I mean, myself included, would love to see this community rise again and rebuild and thrive. And even as Dr. Melina Abdullah of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which has been doing a lot of work to help with the charitable recovery, says, can we build back Dena blacker? I mean, but it seems like it's going to be tough.
And it is. So many of those that have lost their lives are seniors who have been a member of that community before the turn of this century. It is a tremendous challenge to rebuild if you're in your 60s, 70s, or even 80. So I can understand wholeheartedly the attraction of some upfront cash in one's later lives and not having to deal with the aggravation and the struggle of rebuilding again. That's why I continue to emphasize the importance of community. You mentioned the Red Cat Kitchen. I mean, the Red Kitchen, there were so many little mom and pop stores, pizza shops, coffee shops, owned and operated by Black families for generations that have been victimized by this fire. I so hope, as do you, that the vibrancy of that community will be able to return one day soon.
I mean, from a legal standpoint, and just what you know so far. Okay, two questions. I'm going to separate them. One, will we see or could we see a class action suit against Edison?
There is likely going to be the functional equivalent of a class action, which is basically called a mass tort case. Because every victim in this fire has different damages. Home values are different. Some people lost lives. So a class action is not necessarily the best vehicle to address the damages, because while there is a commonality of fault, there's not a commonality of damages. So because the damages are so individual, it will not be a class action in the classic sense of that phrase. However, there are going to be thousands of different lawsuits. They are all going to be consolidated together, and probably they'll be controlled by a team of judges so that there'll be consistency with discovery and asking questions and having depositions. There will likely be what's called a plaintiff steering committee, where a group of 10 lawyers or so will take the laboring oar of doing most of the legwork that'll be necessary. There are going to be thousands of victims who are going to have to be deposed and have their losses preserved, especially because so many victims are elderly, and it's likely the process will take many, many years. So to preserve their testimony is going to be crucial. That is why I expect it's going to be a 3, 5, or even 7-year journey before true justice is achieved by most of the victims of this tragedy.
We're talking about the Eaton Canyon Fire, commonly known by us as Altadena Fire. Attorney Carl Douglas is my guest. I'm Dominique DiPrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. SMP volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an SMP open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit caSMPvolunteer.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
The Eaton Canyon Fire devastated many black families in Altadena, taking more than just homes. It took memories, legacies, and generational wealth. The heart of a black community is now in jeopardy, but Justice Coalition, led by Gage and King LA Lawyers for the People, are here to help. If you've lost your home, we are standing by to hold insurance companies and utilities accountable for the damage caused. When the community suffers, we all suffer. Together, we can rebuild what was lost. Your recovery starts today. Call 626-429-1259. That's 626-429-1259. Or visit www.eatonfirelawyers.net. Justice Coalition, Gage and King, LA Lawyers for the People. We got you. Call 626-429-1259. Visit www.eatonfirelawyers.net. Again, 626-429-1259. This is attorney advertising. Past results do not guarantee future outcomes. Legal representation is provided by licensed attorneys.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their programs. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Bam! Out of nowhere. Crashed, hurt, don't panic, don't wait, don't call your insurance company. Call 877-CARE-LAW, the car accident attorneys who care about your case and win you the big money you deserve. Car accident, serious injury, other firms just handle cases. We own them at 877-CARE-LAW. We're the premier injury law firm with a powerhouse team of medical experts who prove your injuries, fight for your rights, and get you the max payout fast. No fees unless you win. Dial 877-CARE-LAW now or visit 877carelaw.com.
877-CARE-LAW, 877-CARE-LAW. Hurt in a crash, don't stall, just call 877-CARE-LAW. Faster wins, bigger pay. After an accident, call right away. 877-CARE-LAW, 877-CARE-LAW.
Car accident, injury, don't call your insurance company. Call one team, one win. 877-CARE-LAW. Call now or go to 877carelaw.com.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, indeed. We're talking about Altadena, the Eaton Canyon Fire. Attorney Carl Douglas, a powerhouse and renowned trial attorney and managing partner at Douglas Hicks Law in Los Angeles, former managing attorney at the Cochran firm, is my guest. He is representing the relatives, Kimiko Nickerson and Chase Newton, the grandson of the founder of Watts Nickerson Gardens housing complex. They are suing Southern California Edison, and we've been diving into what all of that entails. A lot of questions. Artist Moore Jr. in the chat asks, has Edison responded yet?
Yes, they have, as most large corporations do. They're taking a wait-and-see approach. They cannot acknowledge responsibility for this tragedy in their public statements. But in response to our lawsuit, for example, they certainly expressed their condolences for the loss of life, and they then make a benign statement that we're going to allow the legal process to work its way through the system to see what happens. That's really the most that they can say right now. I can say for personal information, they are working with we lawyers, coordinating inspections of the towers. The towers will be inspected even starting next week, which is a great, important aspect of our litigation strategy. So they are being cooperative because they know there will likely be some responsibility attached to them, just given the fact that we know in terms of where and how the fire started.
There are multiple investigations going on, right? And I think the county is investigating. I'm sure Edison's doing their own. I believe there's a federal investigation, right?
I would not be surprised, just given how vast the devastation has been, that there will be various investigations on the city, state, on the county, the state, and the federal level. As you've noted, Altadena is not a city of its own, so I'm not sure if they're going to conduct any sort of investigation I doubt that they have the resources.
I mean,
with
they don't have a
other
mayor,
contenders.
but they have a supervisor.
Correct.
Catherine Barger on the, LA County Board of Supervisors represents that area. She's the only Republican on the board. I haven't seen many people holding her accountable, really, if we're being fair. But clearly, they have representation, even though they don't have a mayor or a city council.
Indeed, and they last week filed a lawsuit themselves against Southern California Edison to reimburse them for their fire safety expenses that they've incurred. So that is how they're going to be part of the process, trying to get to the bottom of what happened.
Okay. Why does it take so long? Why do we have to? I know, it's investigations and this and that, but I'm thinking about these older Americans that own the property, they own the land, or where their houses used to be, and now they, at their, advanced age, have to wait for this process to play out, and it could take even longer than that, right?
And I am one of the reasons for the problem, Dominique. In law, good and quick rarely occur in the same sentence. What's quick is rarely good. What's good is rarely quick, I suggest. In this circumstance, there is a statute of limitations of 3 years for property losses. So people have 3 years from January the 7th of 2025 all the way through 2028 before they can even file a lawsuit. So in fairness, Edison is not going to commit money even to compensate the death cases until they have a clear understanding of what the landscape is going to look like. How many of the 17 people are going to file lawsuits? What were the ages of those that died? What were the connections to the relatives who are now the heirs who are filing the suits? How much was the damage of each of these 9,000 structures that burned? What other memories are the plaintiffs going to suggest that they were injured to increase the exposure of Edison? The complexity and just the scope of the number of lawsuits is the primary reason why it'll take 5 years for us to work our way through the procedural hurdles that are going to be confronted in this matter.
Got to address this because it's especially online, but even in our chat, there's this theory going around that, the fires were set. They wanted to drive black people out of Altadena, that there was some kind of nefarious conspiracy.
I have spent most of my 45 years representing black people alleging civil rights violations. And if I thought there was some grand conspiracy, I would include that in my lawsuit. However, there were historic wins during that part of time. There was an unprecedented drought, which made vegetation particularly susceptible to these kinds of wind-driven fires. And you can't forget, a few miles to the west, there were thousands of Anglos who lost their lives in the Palisades fire, and I can't imagine any conspiracy would combine both Palisades and Altadena.
What about tips to help people? I mean, from a legal standpoint, and we just have a few minutes here, but I've heard about land trusts. Jeff Davis was saying maybe they can give the older American the insurance payout and then let the heirs take a loan on the property to rebuild based on the value of the land. Different kinds of things people might be able to consider to keep Altadena black and to be able to rebuild and continue to live there.
These are all tremendous strategies that people are going to have to consider to employ. Regrettably, I don't have the level of real estate expertise to advise on which particular approach would be most advisable. Every person's circumstance is different. A general piece of advice is you're going to be inundated. You are being inundated with different solicitations from lawyers about what they can or cannot do. I always suggest to my potential clients, that you hire a lawyer like you would be hiring someone to operate on your child's brain. If you don't have a visceral connection of trust and honesty, you should not hire that lawyer. And it's going to be a tremendously difficult challenge because we're being inundated with ads and billboards. Everyone sees blood in the water, and we lawyers can sometimes be sharks. So I advise your listeners to be patient and to stick with their gut to do what's right.
We got a little over a minute here. Well, a minute, Attorney Douglas. What do you want to leave us with this morning?
It is so important that we continue to strive to retain the legacy of this great community. And I urge your listeners to be vigilant and continue listening to programs like these so that the good words can go out to all affected.
Douglas,
thank you for your help, Don.
Thank you. DouglasHicksLaw.com if they want to find out more about you, or if they're thinking, maybe that should be my lawyer. DouglasHicksLaw.com is where they can go, right?
Yes, my dear. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure being on the show.
It's a pleasure having you, Attorney Carl Douglas, speaking on Altadena and their lawsuit against Edison. Southern California Edison. Next up, Dr. Gerald Horn, one of our top scholars nationally, joins me to unpack and analyze what's going on from coast to coast. I'm Dominique DiPrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Measles cases continue to rise after a West Texas outbreak with 258 confirmed cases across multiple states. Most cases are in unvaccinated children in Texas, and there have been 2 related deaths. 6